Hey everyone, hope your day is going well. You're back with another reaction, and let me take you down to the craziest edits in the Beatles song, Strawberry Fields Forever. Of course, a great song. And this is from the You Can't Unhear This YouTube channel. I've been checking out a lot of these videos, getting a little bit of more info, sometimes about the creative process in the songs, or some anomalies, or some mysteries. It's really fun to learn about these things. And this is about Strawberry Fields Forever. And let's see what crazy edit is in this song. Let's go.
Strawberry Fields Forever. It's one of the most well-known and highly regarded Beatles songs, and rightfully so. It's a masterpiece. It also has one of the most fascinating edits in all of recorded music, one that you might not have even noticed. But as a fair warning, once I point it out, you can't unhear this. The Beatles started work on Strawberry Fields Forever in late 1966, their first time back in the studio since the release of the Revolver album a few months earlier. By this point, the Beatles were transitioning from being on the road and performing almost constantly to spending almost all their time in Abbey Road studios. The band spent a total of 55 hours in the studio working on Strawberry Fields Forever. To put that into perspective, they recorded their entire first album in just 13 hours. Evolving from a simple acoustic demo by John Lennon into a complex masterpiece, all with relatively simple 4-track tape machines, required a ton of ingenuity on the part of the Beatles and Abbey Road's engineers, led by producer George Martin. There's a ton of really interesting aspects to the song, and you could spend hours analyzing its musical merits and complex production. But I'm going to focus on the most interesting anomaly on the track. If you listen closely just before the 1-minute mark, you'll notice a weird shift in the way everything sounds. You'll notice first that John's voice changes pretty dramatically between the words "'cause I'm" and "going to." Let's listen.
Let me take you down, 'cause I'm going to Strawberry Fields.
Suddenly there's an entire...
What? Let me listen again. Let me listen again.
Let's listen.
Let me take you down, 'cause I'm going to Strawberry Fields.
Suddenly there's an entire orchestral arrangement and a bunch of otherworldly sounds like reverse hi-hats and Eastern instruments. Also, Ringo's drums become more intense. So what happened?
I did not hear the, or maybe a slight change in terms of the vocals. The rest, of course, is obvious, but the vocals, let me hear it again.
I'm and going to. Let's listen.
Let me take you down, 'cause I'm going to Strawberry Fields.
Suddenly there's an entire
It does sound
orchestral
so good,
and a bunch of otherworldly sounds like reverse hi-hats and Eastern instruments. Also, Ringo's drums become more intense.
Yeah.
So what happened? What you're hearing is a very careful splice of two completely different takes of the song in two completely different keys, cut together mid-phrase. The first portion of the song, from the opening through the 1-minute mark.
You know, it's amazing. I can barely detect that in the vocals. Sometimes, you know, you can hear it more in certain songs. I've heard it where I hear it most, and of course it's much easier to detect, is like in audio books. Like if maybe somebody was done for the day, comes in a different day to narrate the rest of the story, you can kind of hear like, oh, there's a different inflection suddenly in the voice in the next sentence, for example. Is you have it too, you know, when you listen to your own voice, sometimes, you know, you can sound a little bit more raspy, or, you know, you increase your volume. So it's like, oh, he just kind of changed the way he's speaking suddenly mid-phrase, but then you think, oh, this is probably an edit and a different day, perhaps. In music, it's harder to the vocal was only barely detectable to me, at least.
Cut together mid-phrase. The first portion of the song,
is cool.
from the opening through the 1-minute mark,
A
comes
really
from
well
take 7.
done edit.
Take 7, recorded earlier in the sessions, is gentle and sparsely arranged. There's a clean electric guitar. Ringo's drumming is methodical. There's a light tambourine here and there, and surrounding it all is the haunting sound of the mellotron that relied on tape loops to simulate actual instruments such as a flute. Here's the same section from
so
Take
good,
7 without the splice.
Iconic.
Let me take you down, 'cause I'm going to Strawberry Fields.
the final mix of the track, at just before the 1-minute mark, we cross over almost seamlessly into take 26, recorded on a totally different day at Abbey Road.
Let me take you down, 'cause I'm going to Strawberry Field.
By
That
this
is
point in
cool.
the song's evolution, John had pushed the sound in a much darker and heavier direction. Having
We jump from 7 to 26, so that is, everything in between, all the extra things he might have added and changed in between then. That's quite a jump, huh?
George Martin added an orchestral track, along with a host of other sounds and instruments that weren't exactly commonplace on pop records at the time. Here's take 26 in the same section. Notice how John's voice sounds a little different here, though, than in the final version.
Let me take you down,
Oh,
'cause
yeah.
I'm going to Strawberry Field.
John liked the style of both of the takes and asked George Martin to figure out a way to put the tracks together. At the time, engineers had to use actual scissors and tape to splice together the different takes, a laborious process that required incredible precision. It was made even more difficult because the two takes were performed in different keys and at different tempos. That is,
That's amazing, right? Because it's not like, oh, you accidentally cut it wrong. So now in digital, Control Z, for example, undo, or whatever machine you're working on, undo whatever action you just did. Once you cut the thing in the physical tape, it's ooh. Now here the difference in the vocals was more audible now that I heard that entire phrase there. A little sharper, perhaps.
speeds.
Let me take you down. Let me take you down. 'Cause I'm going to. 'Cause I'm going to.
And here's softer. No?
Luckily, the engineers realized that by slowing down take 26, it shifted the pitch so that the two takes matched, albeit with John's voice sounding a bit deeper and slower than normal because of the pitch shifting.
Let me take you down. 'Cause I'm going to.
Ah.
Strawberry Field.
Even more impressive is that instead
Because if they wouldn't have done that change in vocals would be so much more in your face, kind of like, hey, something is up here. But because of that, I mean, if you're listening to that without just a casual listener, who hears that? No, nobody, I guess.
of making the cut, say, between verses or during a quieter portion of the song, it happens in the middle of the first line of the chorus. The result, which would have likely never happened in a modern digital studio environment, is nothing short of brilliant. The transition actually fits the song lyrics well, resembling a disorienting slide into a nostalgic fever dream. And it gives the song an otherworldly quality that rivals the Beatles' other psychedelic masterpieces, such as Tomorrow Never Knows from Revolver or A Day in the Life from Sgt. Pepper's. It's worth mentioning that by this point, the Beatles were experimenting heavily with LSD, which probably explains a lot. But I can't stress how much ingenuity went into the creation of this track to bring the Beatles' vision to life. There's a bunch of other little oddities and curiosities, such as the wild cacophony during the outro, which I'll save for another video. If you're especially curious, the individual take 7 and take 26, the two that were spliced together in the final version, were released in their entirety as part of the Sgt. Pepper's remix. Check out a link in the description below to hear those tracks. Oddly enough, John Lennon said in a 1980 interview that he wasn't pleased with how the final track came out, even suggesting that Paul McCartney was subconsciously sabotaging John's songs by allowing them to be released in these experimental versions, rather than Paul's typically more polished songs. What do you think about Strawberry Fields Forever? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel You Can't Unhear This for more videos about the oddities and anomalies in recorded music.
Hey, this was a cool one, because I would have never have known this. And now when I'm gonna go be, yeah, gobi. That's cauliflower in Hindi, by the way, in Hindi and Punjabi. It's good for you. When I'm gonna be, it's a desert as well. But when I'm listening to this song now, I will always be just remembering that, right? All these little things. And, you can bring it up in a conversation now, like I'm the expert. They won't know. I just watched a YouTube video. Of course, now I will be the expert just in, the living room expert or armchair expert when it comes to the Beatles just by listening to these videos or watching these. It's really cool. Thank you for joining me today. If you have any other recommendations, let me know. Hope to see you there. Goodbye.